All right, so it looks like I'm live right now. Just double checking that. Live and yeah, got one active. Upcoming. What does it mean upcoming? Isn't it running now? My apologies on not getting any of this figured out for people starting to watch this. Let's just go over to the YouTube link and take a look at what that shows. It shows me talking about this stuff from a little bit ago. All right, well, let's turn that one off, or mute it at least. Video details. Cool. Channel content, and then let's go to this page. Perfect. So that's a stream. It's been up for almost a minute. All right. So the area that I'm working on right now, what's that? Yep, good. The area that I'm working on right now is something called traffic cards for Vigilante Racer, and or a smaller edition of it that I'm going to try to get out in the next 2 weeks. So Vigilante Racer, we've got traffic car, and the idea is that I want cars to be able to travel through the world in here so that they can I get the scene? Thank you. So that they can move around inside of this environment. Now, I was considering different ways of doing this, such as a procedural system that can automatically determine like corners and edges and move away from the edges. But I decided I'm going to do this in a manual system. I just need to make sure that I have tooling that's going to support it. So I'm basically creating a nav mesh, a navigation framework for cars to be able to travel to. However, instead of a nav mesh where we define all these open spaces that we can move within, I want to create the actual nodes to travel from this point to that point. I'm not concerned with curves in this one and corners. In fact, vehicles might not even take a direct path going from one point to another. That has more to do with how the car is driving. So instead of if it's coming this way and then it gets to the point and then there's another point way over here, it's going to turn, but it might turn wide in order to make that turn, which might cause it to shift up onto a wall and then make its way back. And I have some considerations in how I'm going to manage that, because that means its direction would effectively become up from its side, so it would have to turn up, but it actually needs to be going this way. And so how do I direct that? I've got a few things that I'll need to figure out for how that part's going to work. But I'll try it out to begin with, and we'll see how it works. All right, so traffic car. I'm going to I'm going to go through the description first. Cars pick a location to head towards, and once within range, it picks another to move to. So we got a point, and it picks another point to move to. Now those points need to be near each other, so they have to be interconnected. Each game object marker marks a position and can be viewed in editor with connecting lines, if any are selected. Now, a game object is going to be easier to manipulate within the scene because there's already tooling to move around a game object and to see it within the scene. I could put my own handles, put my own tools in there, but a game object works kind of nicely for this. However, I don't want that to be visible in the end game, but I could come up with a shortcut that operates between these two. So for one, I do need a system that's going to be storing and managing that data, because effectively nothing needs to show that in the game. It's just a series of interconnected points, so a mesh of data. Technically, I suppose I could break that out into a mesh where I've got the points, I've got the edges that connect. Actually use a mesh that is mapped out of the entire thing. Not exactly what I had in mind, but not far off, because those ones are designed to operate off of triangles. Yeah, not going to go with that. I'll still build this in just C#. Okay, I also want to consider the best memory setup. Now, what I'm planning on doing right now is that the system is going to be a game object within the game. So I need to take that system, and since it is a game object and technically its position doesn't matter, I'm going to make that my planchet. I'm going to make that my item that I can move around in the scene to symbolize things, and I'll create a couple extra tools and buttons to indicate what I'm doing to move it around at that time. And then also use debug lines to draw out and connect it to different spots. And then if I move to a different spot in the mesh, then I should see it, basically the game object, move over to that point so I can interact and maybe move that object. All right. So this is a mesh. Now, if I were looking up, looks like it's AI stuff, but this is kind of the idea of what I might end up having at the end. A grid of lines that show up almost like city streets, but in this case, over the sides of buildings. Don't need to keep that. All right, so now I'm going to start by creating a system to store this information that's going to become a large class that holds a lot of different tools for this. Why is that there? I guess I can put it here. That works. Oh, let's see. Oh, I'm getting a bit late over here. And I need to catch up on some sleep. All right, maybe an hour left and I'll head out for the night. But let's see how much of this I can get done right now. All right. Post chaos. No, that one's done. We got a system. We need the system. This is going to be for, I guess, traffic. We'll call it traffic. Okay. Create empty traffic. And now we're going to need a new script for it. Where is this one? It technically has a lot of editor tools in it, but it's still going to run in game. So let's go create, not folder, just a mono behavior. And we're going to call this traffic system. All right, so the traffic system has no special code right now. We're going to go into this, clear out the code that's in it. And the first thing I want to do with that is copy over the text from the description. Control C, and let's go to this and let's paste it into here. Now, Control KC there. All right, let's move these back a little bit. Cool. Let's consider the best memory for storing this. Okay, so I need a list of locations. Then I also need to know how those positions are connected to each other. So let's take a look at a memory structure for this. It seems like a prime candidate. All right, to begin with, we know we've got locations. So locations are going to be vector3 positions, and then those vector3 positions will be stored within an index inside of an array. So from that index, let's see, then we can store an array of indexes that are pointing out to it. This is very similar to a mesh from a triangle mesh. We've got a series of points, of vector3 points, that then have indexes to call out, we're going to use this one, then this one, then this one. And it looks like I'm losing power here on my mouse. Let's get it plugged in. Green, yay. Okay, so then I suppose one of the things that I can do is identify where these items are. I need a pathway to do this. So let's just bring up Notepad. Yeah, don't save. All right. So inside of here, what do we have? We have mono behavior. We need to store positions. Now, paths from one position to another. The general object structure of this might be something along the lines of class position, class node, and then underneath it we have vector3 position, and then int offset, int array connections. Or I guess in this case it would be node array. Object references, each one of these stored in their own spot, so multiple objects can store references to the same nodes. Node, node, connected. And we don't know the size. It could have 1, it could have 10. Now, if it's indexes, and I am going to have a lot within this city, we've got to figure out a number of like how many. It's indie, and I'm not wanting to take a lot of time with this, and I'm also not going procedural. So the concept of us going over 65,000 is ridiculous. So that would be int 16. All right, so the indexes could be int 16. Int 16 for indexing. 1 byte would only give me 255, which is also unreasonably low for this map size. Unless I were just building it as trains, but I want a whole traffic system inside of here. Maybe a procedural system would work best. Let me take a minute to think about how I might actually do that. Okay, so I've got my 3D world here, and where's my car? Oh, right there. I was pretty close. All right, so inside of here, I might have a pathway that comes through right here. It comes around that corner and could go in here, but if it does, it most likely would be going up. That seems like a ridiculous spot. Okay, I'm not going to worry about ridiculous procedural work at this point in time. I'm just going to, let's go for some more obvious items I can improve the procedure after. Okay, obvious. It wants to start creating a line. So I could approach this line where I, let's say, pick random points throughout the world and then send offset positions going into different directions. Maybe I follow the faces. Each of these buildings, let's bring up wire mesh. Okay, let me turn off some of the zones. So if I were to turn these ones off, and we just go over to this set on the ground right now, the number of triangles within this environment are actually incredibly low. So maybe I could use the triangles. Effectively, the idea would be, like I've created a mesh for this before. Oh, actually, yeah, I've created a mesh for this before. Let's go over to YouTube. Over to my channel. Where's that? View my channel. Okay, now on my channel, where was that? The RTS, this one. Triangle surface. This is where I'm outlining the triangles. Then I move on, surface highlighting. There was also a point where I created points throughout the triangles. Now that was using a 3D nav mesh that was being provided to me. Find the edges of the triangle. No, I needed to create edge points here. Ads. Maybe you just saw one, and now you're seeing another one. I don't care about this stuff. Go away. Skip. Okay, so we got all those, the positions of this stuff. Hey, it's me. Yeah, all of those guys traveling over. What was I doing? That created different points for them to go to, but this was not the setup. I had something different that was generating the points within this system. I'm not sure if I even created a video on it. All right. So I'll leave that one out of there for now. Okay. But effectively, I could take each triangle and I could just put a point in the center of each triangle. So I unpack the mesh, create the triangle. Now, the problem with that is that that works great when I'm connecting two sides that are next to each other. And they're flat on the surface. So I travel from one point to the next point. However, when I'm traveling from here and I connecting to a triangle that's on this side, I could use the triangles, the fact that the triangles are connected, and then use the normals. How hard would it be to detect the edge? Well, I've got the triangle lines. I can use the triangle lines. And so from there, I could point from the center of here to the center of this and over, but then that's going to create these weird jagged connections. No. All right. I'm not coming up with something that I think would be simple enough for a small project. So I think manual in this case is going to be best for adding. We have visuals. I want to see that. Oh, I've got the rest of the world turned off. Let's turn that back on. There. Okay, that side doesn't connect anything. This one really should go all the way across, but it doesn't. Whatever, that's separate. Okay, so I want tooling that's going to be on here, and effectively that means let's just click. Okay, so the first operation, what would be the simplest way to start adding points? I click. So I click on the surface, I get a raycast to determine where I just clicked on the surface. Now I need to do a raycast from the camera in the editor view. Okay, that's reasonable. I don't remember how to do that right now, how to actually obtain that, and it very well may have changed in Unity 6, but it's always been something available to do. So I get a raycast, I find the point, and then I can use the normal to push away from that by, say, well, I'll pick a distance. Um, oh, and that can be something that the script is doing, that the traffic system is holding onto. So I'm going to put that into traffic. So this would have height over the mesh. Okay, so that's one item to put in there. Public float height over mesh equals 0. Equals, in this case, oh, the heights are going to matter, aren't they? Because different vehicles, I have to understand the height that they're generally traveling at, because otherwise, how do I know that you're within range? Well, I guess range is going to be whatever that height is. So if the height is 6 meters off the top and you get within 6 meters of that, then that's close enough. All right. Equals, and let's just say 4 to begin with. I can change this. If I also store where that point was actually captured. So if I store the hit point from the collision, from the raycast, and then I store the normal away from that, that is data that I can use that gets serialized into the game object, but does not get stored or sent out. I need it to not get sent out to the actual game. Okay, let's find out if there is a script in here or some attribute or component. Unity C# attribute to I don't want a game object to compile with the game. Yes, I know the game objects don't compile. It's the scripts or the code that does. What? Yes, okay, I see that. Got it. You want a game object. Mono behavior. This script won't exist in the build. That's a script, but that doesn't include the mono behavior. That means it basically means that the serialized data is still going to be sitting there. It'll still get pulled in. At least I assume it will, because it stores the state into a serialized object. Now, or like JSON basically. And so it stores all that information. And even if I get rid of the fields, that data is still technically there. That's just has nothing to be applied to. So I think I would still end up where it tries to process out a large amount of data for that file. All right, not what I'm looking for. I guess another thing that I could do is just save that out to an asset, a scriptable object that holds onto all the information. Scriptable object wouldn't be a tool that I can pass around in the scene, but they can work together. Or it just needs to hold on to the data to connect it. And so I store that information inside of there. Okay. All right, hide over mesh. I'll deal with this stuff for that later. I guess I still need to know it. So I'm going to need hit points. Okay, so then I need to be able to connect the hit points. And so to connect the hit points, what's going to be the way that I do it? I suppose I can move the mouse, and then I want to determine if that mouse is near a particular point. How would I determine that in a quick or easy way? There is no quick and easy way that's coming right to mind right now. Not if I'm going through the entire mesh of them. I could do an initial distance check, but the problem is I'm doing a raycast to determine if it's against those points. So I guess for one, if I'm raycasting, I could determine what object it's touching. I'm mouse overing, and then it'll find points that are against that same mesh. But then I have to reference all the items by those mesh. So basically have a dictionary of lists. And that's not going to work that well. All right, over here. All right, now back to this public float, height over mesh. We just need, we can create a game object, tell it to stamp, and then as I move near another area, I can have it look up other points. So it can highlight those other points. And basically I just click a box saying, yes, this one. So it'll have the dots up there. And as long as I move the planchet, is that the right word here? Like that's the description for the item from a Ouija board, but define planchet. Yes, that's exactly what I want. I want to download a dictionary. Planchet, a small board supported on casters, typically heart-shaped and fitted with a vertical pencil. Does it have a more general one? Little plink. There's probably a better term to use for it than this. That one does seem like it's isolated to the Ouija board. All right, what do we got? So I move the game object around. Ooh, the scripts where I'm moving the game object around. Where was that? Let's go back to YouTube again and go back to my channel. I guess an easy way to look up scripts at times is I can go back to my past channel or to the past videos I posted on my channel and try to find items that are in here. This would have been a smaller one, should be relatively recent. Just go to videos. There. That one, design tool, snap to grid. That is a reasonable one where we want to align it, the object, to the surface. Let me go back into the video and I want to mute it. It's muted. Yes, this is exactly what I wanted to see. There's some AI guy speaking. All right, let's find it. It should be right in the beginning. So I'm moving, if this is the one that I'm thinking of, it moves the object. No, grid snap, that's not what I want. I want the angular tool. It's something else connected to this one. Go back. That was grid snap, auto align. This one, this is it. So in auto align, when I move an object around, it automatically aligns to whatever surface. So that means I can also have that ray cast out. Did I put code in that references where to find this? Script, yay, .NET Fiddle. Excellent, I have it. Control C. This was class designer. I will start with that. Oh, I can actually just store it all in this. All right, so first off, let's go to, I will need this to run in the, to actually compile. Okay, it's all called traffic system. I'm going to copy this stuff out of here, Control AV. And now for the code, I'm going to go to traffic system. All right, now Control C. And so this is my traffic system. And then scroll back down to here. We're going to go to traffic system and traffic system designer and switch that over to this one as well. Okay, so the code looks like it should compile now. I do need to get those comments back into it. Where did I put those comments? In the task. There. So traffic, copy, and now let's get to the top. Okay, so I've got that stuff. Now inside of this, this is traffic system. Originally, I would add this to an object and then I could just drag it around. Was this update normal align scene view? It does get the scene view camera. Point to raycast for there. Seeing about the hits. We didn't want to include the object itself in it. In this one, I suppose I could use an actual object to move around to give it some mass and a specific shape. Actually, that might be a very good thing to do. No, debug draw probably be good enough. They technically could create anything with debug draw. Okay, raycast, we get the raycast, we get the information. All right, well, let's just take this and then maybe I'll put a small cube child onto the system and then start dragging that object around. So if I go back into here, let's add a cube to the system. That should show up around 0, so that's close to where the starting player is now. Traffic. All right, now I'm going to add a 3D object. Let's go with a cube, and then let's go find that cube. Okay. It's hiding right there. Now, this parent object, that's at 0, 0, 0. That is also at 0, 0, 0. So let's just take the traffic cube and move it out a little bit. Now, when I put, oh, the traffic system is already in here. We got normal angle, align normal. I think that's what I want. Let's just try it out and see what this script does. All right, back into here. Oh, and the script would operate without being anything in there. So let's go align normal. So it is realigning it to whatever surface I'm. Oh, I'm actually pushing that one around with the physics because it's colliding with this cube space. All right, let's move over to the car. Oh, that's actually kind of fun. Lets me manipulate objects in the world in a slightly interesting way. Can I turn this into a mechanic in the game? So it applies to the surface and tries to flatten it. Whatever. Okay, so generally speaking, we know that that works. Ah, no, stop selecting it. There. As long as I have the object selected. Okay, I've pinned the car to the surface. All right, cool. Um, all right, so that designer tool kind of works. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that when I do that, the designer tool is actually going to move farther away. So I'm going to add an extra element to this one. Let's go back over to the traffic system and go align normal. Oh, wait a second. This is supposed to run while I'm in the editor, isn't it? No, it is not running while I'm in the editor. I would need it to update at design time, but that's what I want. I don't want this to run while it's in the game. Okay, so two things to modify inside of here. One, run in editor. It's got to execute in edit mode. Why wasn't it working? Okay, but that didn't seem to be working, so we'll come back to that one. Next, run an editor, and what was the other thing that I needed to do? Oh, distance from surface. All right. Within the editor, we've got align normal. We've got the normal angle fields, public. Let's create a few more things. Public float distance from surface. And I will set this to, let's go with 3 for right now. 3F. Distance from surface. Okay, so we align normal. Now, when we're going to be setting the position, we say, here is the position. We set it and we realign the normal. We are doing nothing to push away from that. So we the transform up. So now transform, we're setting up to match the normal. So now if we translate across the up vector, transform.translate vector3.up times, and what was the field that I just created? That was distance from surface. Distance from surface. That should automatically have it sticking out that far from the surface. The angle should still match. It should be going straight out, perpendicular to the face that I placed it on. And we also wanted this to operate inside the editor, but we'll come back to that one in a minute because it looks initially like it should, and maybe I just did something wrong in the way I was dragging it. I guess I'm waiting for Unity to finish compiling. There, I was. Oh, yeah, there it is. It's running in the editor. Now, let's try this. That dot. No. All right. Oh, I gotta do something else, like put a hotkey on this when I'm pressing the button. Because if I select there, now I can move. The problem I was running. Oh, yeah, that's putting it away from the surface. Okay, let's try it over these ones. So if I've got the traffic cube and I now set this over here, that's not what I expected. It seems like it's not colliding with this object over here. Do I have a minimum distance on this? Okay, but it definitely seems to be interacting with this one. Why not this one? Let's back up a little bit. Wait, where did it go? Cube? Okay, it went straight through this object. There's no collider on it, is there? Okay, the caboose, I haven't applied any colliders. However, if I go over to this one's got a big collider sitting right on top of it. And the car also has a collider sitting on top of it. Okay, that's not what I was expecting. All right, so if I added a collider to the caboose and I go to here, which it's going to need anyway, so why not just add it? Box collider, we've got the box collider in there. Let's focus on this. And now I need to go to a side view, and in 2D, now let's edit the actual shape of the box collider. This one drops down to here, continues up to there, expands out to the side, expands out to that side. Let's change our angle. Do the same over here. It'd be nice with this if there were a hotkey operation. I could just imagine, like, if I'm holding shift while I'm inside the edit mode for the collider, that if I just click out here in the background and drag inward, it just kind of brings the lines inward where that overlaps. And if I hold control while I'm inside, or shift while I'm inside, and I can push it out, then it starts pushing it out. Maybe I could use something like that for my own design tools. Anyway, not a big deal at this point. So now the box should be perfect for this, which means that when I start dragging that cube around, it should respond to this system as well. And it does there. So now that's set it directly above the surface. Let's also put a debug draw line so that helps identify, because just watching this move around, it didn't feel quite right. All right, so inside of there, let's do array cast. That's align normal. That's where we want to draw this stuff. Update. So here we are aligning the normals. In this case, I actually want to just do a debug draw. Would that be the update? This is execute in edit mode, so that should be. Mouse over that for a second. To execute and edit. Be nice if it actually said that that was for the update, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's implying anyway. All right, update. So here we're deciding to update. We're also going to do the draw. So we want to do draw tool. Update. Let's create the function. Whoa, no, that is not what I meant. Control dot, create method. Yes, that's what I want. Thank you. It is a void. And in this one, what am I going to do in this code? I want to draw a line from the hit point to where it actually showed up. But it only registers this when I'm actually moving it around. So I need to actually start storing these points. In that case, oh, this gets into the editor tooling for this. I have it, and now I set it up so I click a button on it, and it says that would say record this point if I click the button in the inspector. Okay. Then the second part of it, and I think I'm only going to spend about maybe 15 more minutes on here tonight. All right. So draw update. With this one, I want a button. That button is going to capture. I want a button on the script that says this spot. That saves this location. Next, that should store the hit point, the distance from the surface. When we're storing this, we want to store the hit point and the distance from the surface. But what the game is actually going to use is I don't want to reprocess all of those for where it's trying to go. I mean, that wouldn't be that expensive if I'm keeping the normal on there and I know that I've got the distance set for the vehicle can apply the math itself, which would mean that if different vehicles have different target heights, that would work. But then also the distance, if I use the radius, then that should fit just fine. So I don't necessarily need to worry about this. I think I might find some points where cars start piling up. All right, that store should hit the point. That should store the hit point. Mm, not the hit point. Yeah, whatever. I'll do the extra math with it. Okay, that should store the hit point and the normal. And I can define the distance, and that'll be something that gets applied in the math when it gets used. Okay. Now, the ID or the index of that one, if I drag this to another location, I can click new point. Let's just name that here, new point. I can click new point and send to create another new point. I can click new point or click, this one would be align, connect point. Control Enter duplicates the script file that I'm in. Okay, new hotkey. I'm used to having to do things like Controller Shift Enter inside of AI tools when I use them, and a lot of other things are starting to use that too now. All right, so, and if anyone's interested, I have all the AI tools turned off on this IDE. I found it anytime that AI is trying to jump in, like Copilot, when you're typing and it auto suggests code, I found that distracting. It tears apart the mental model that you build up in your head. And so that was always, it became almost impossible to focus. I felt like I was getting dumber and would burn out earlier in the day just because I kept having to rebuild what that mental model was. All right, so let's move that to there. All right, if I drag this to another location, I can click new point or connect point. Connect point should highlight or enable when it's within range of another point. I guess with that one, I could just do a distance check. So if I have a distance check, say it's within 5 meters, then it picks the closest one. So it'll find all the points within 5 meters and then connect those. Now, the design tool might get a little bit on the expensive side after I have a couple thousand of these in here and I'm manually going around and doing this. However, I don't need the entire game to have traffic points in here. But this is still a design pain that I guess I'm going to have to work through. This is one of the things I've heard before that did and seen the design tools, how good or bad they are defines how much of a game you can build out. But at this point, I just need something that works. We'll get it to work, and then I can possibly come back and if I decide to make improvements to that in a short period of time based on what I'm using and what I specifically want to add. Okay, let's do it that way. All right, so we need to be able to connect the points. So to connect a point, how are we going to store that connection? I could store a list of connections that's inside of here. So I say from here, the index. Oh, okay. So it kind of feels like I need 3 indexes. So first off, we would need positions, v3. I would need uh, indexes. I would need the list of connections. Position offset, index offset. Int, same length as positions, and then indexes. Int indexes uses points to offset in index offset, points to offset in index offset. All right, that points to offset in index offset. This would account for everything. So V3, those are the positions of the actual nodes. Index offsets, this would indicate how many of those are showing up. Oh, I would need the length in here as well. What if I had this instead of being an index of, let's do some unsafe code in this one. I like unsafe code in some places. It just makes things so much easier. So I could create a custom struct, an unsafe struct that is, it's basically just stores an integer. So we have the integer that is our index, but then that is also broken into 2 separate indexes that are stored as int16s that I can pull the information out and just do live casting as that type. Okay, so or live casting, that's not the right terms, but whatever. The type I would have 2 different floats sitting. There's 2 different int16s sitting inside of it. One of them could be the count, but then I'm basically just using 4-byte lookups for this, and that means I can hold that 64 4-byte 16, not 30, 16, yeah. So I can hold 16 of those in a cache line. However, in this one, I'm not jumping around a lot, except for index offset. Index offset, I would be jumping around more, but I want to know the count, and I want to know which one it relates to. I don't want to have to jump through everyone. This is going to get more expensive as time goes on. Okay, whatever. We need a function. All right, draw update. I need the buttons to store this information. So we're going to start with vector3 positions, and we will just draw them. And I will stamp a new one with a button. Okay, got it. So that's my first function, my first feature inside of this one. Drag one. Drag the object. It aligns. Highlights with debug.draw. 2. UI shows, inspector shows add button. So the inspector shows an add button, and then 3 clicking add will cause, what is this one going to do? It's going to create an additional point that it stores inside of positions. Will store current. In this one, I was going to use the normals, the hit points and the normals from the mesh. All right. It will store the current hit point to positions. That also implies that I need normals in here. So let's go to normals. Normals is another V3. Okay. I suppose for these ones, I could have a double offset off of positions where it just grabs one and then the other. That guarantees that the cache lines are right next to each other. Since I'm using this as a memory index where I'm getting the offset of where to leap in memory on the other array, then storing these two items together when they get used together makes more sense. So in this case, this is going to be 2 vector 3s. One is normal, one is position. All right, so I can create a struct for this one. That's going to give me 24 bytes. Create struct to hold it. 24 bytes. Because that's each one of the vector 3s is going to be 12 bytes. So 24 bytes long. That means that we're loading the entire normal and position from one memory read instead of 2, because that would end up being 128 bytes it has to load in from cache lines to do that. The size of them doesn't matter. It's the fact that it has 2 cache lines that it needs to read to get that. Okay, 24 bytes. Is there another piece of information that is important here? I get this one. I'm going to want to know which ones it's connected to. What if I stored... Right now I've got 24 bytes to hold on to this. What if I stored something else in here too? What if I said int? So yeah, we'll use a struct here. So struct, what is this? We would call it a connection point or node. Nah, not used to writer's hotkey or control enter. Why do I keep doing control enter inside of Visual Studio? I don't think it's an AI thing. That would be something like shift enter. Oh well, maybe it's some habit in Visual Studio and I can't remember why. All right, struct node. Inside of here, we're going to have normal. V3 normal, V3 position. Now we also want the length and the count. We're up to 24 bytes. And then from 24 to 32 is going to be another 8 bytes. So then we could fit 2 full stacks of these. Wait, the index has to identify where it's calling off to. No, I can't dynamically generate that. Not unless I could set up something where in the memory it knows that every single one of these will have a total of 10 offsets or 10 different vectors it's going to use. And then I just set that it can't have any more than 10 connections coming to the same spot, which typically maybe 6 or 8 might be the maximum that I do. Actually, even though it's a 3D surface, I'm not going through stuff in opposite axes. So effectively 4 nodes might be enough to count for all directions coming to a single point or a single intersection. So yeah, if we're on a flat surface, we can cross. That means that there's 3 different ways that we can go. Okay, so I can't store that in. I'll just keep it at the 24 bytes. That seems like enough for now. And then the int offsets on these ones, I'll store them there, but these two pieces come out together. Inside of here, could I hold that information in here to say which ones are there and connected? Not in any meaningful way. Well, wait a second. I've got 4 bytes. I could say how many are there, which ones it connects to. It only needs to store the index. So that index would have to have a direct memory address inside of here, which could be 2 bytes in 16. I am overthinking this. Simplify it and back off. All right. So I'll just go with, we've got the index of indexes, and I've got a little bit of extra pieces of information to look up. Okay, so drag the object, it aligns highlights with debug draw. Let's get our debug draw inside of here. So do we have an update going on? We've got the designer on GUI. Can I do a debug draw here? Debug.draw, draw a line, perfect. Okay, now the 2 points that I'm going to need for this is the object's position, current event mouse position, and the camera's position. So we've got the highlight Y. What is this doing? In move mode, it's getting and setting the information of where this object is. It's not doing a raycast in this one. Are we getting at the color? Oh, pixel height. Pixel height. Okay. Oh, got it. Pixel height, pixel width. That's the dimensions. Okay, so we're setting that, but we're not actually getting any of the raycast information at this point. The raycast information is happening down here. I just need to store that and draw it out. So its current position would be relatively important. We do want to store the last hit point that it used for that. So inside of here, I'm going to say public float, not float, vector3 last hit point. Okay, and public vector3, do I need the line? No, I just need it from the current transform position, so that'll work. So every time that I'm doing this, I need to get this stuff. So align normal, I should be updating and getting that information back from the object. Raycast system short. Over here, we're aligning the normal, so we're setting our positions here. And this is where we were doing the translation to move the object up. This is the perfect point to effectively define that line for each point in here. And this is if it gets hit. So I define what the values in that line are. All right, the 2 values that I need, I've got the last hit point and my current transform position. Okay. So now I'm going to say vector3, what was this? Last hit point equals, and which one is that? H dot point. Okay, so we've got the last point, and then our current transform. So to draw this, I need this to happen on update. Do I already have an update going on in here? We have draw update, that's being called there, so we'll do it here. First one, debug.draw line, and inside of here, I need, oh good, I can set the color. So now I need last hit point, comma, transform dot position, comma, and then color dot red, dark red, orange red, sure. Is that everything I needed there? I think so. Wait, I got an error on here. Oh, I've left a debug draw line down here. Got it. The other one is up here. No, in the update. There it is. Okay, so we should get a line from the wall to this. It's a debug line, so it should overlap any of the 3D stuff that's in here. There it is. Oh, and it's 0, 0, 0 because nothing has aligned this yet. So if I click on this object, it takes me to the cube. I want this one. There. Oh, that's much better. So much easier to see. And then when I set it down, that's it. It is there and I can still see the line, but I only want to see it when this object is selected. So update, draw update, that happens when the object's at any point that the object is being interacted with. So if selection dot active object does not equal, and that should be the game object, this dot game object, then return. Okay, it won't draw it unless it's selected in this case, if as long as that line was right. Is it actually going to highlight that, or is this code just a compilation? All right, there it is. Now, there's the cube. When I select this, there, it's showing up. When I select something else, it goes away. Good, perfect. Oh, and I've selected the cube itself. There. That should have all sorts of... Oh, no, it's still just a cube, a cuboid that's showing up over here. All right, that's cool. That gives me my points. It also tells me distance from surface does not get updated dynamically. This would be a good one that if I change the distance from surface, that is of low importance though. In this case, I just change the value and start moving it again. That changes the height. Perfect. Oh, come back. Can I get a shift key for that or something? Because if I... Yeah, right-clicking in the scene. If I right-click in the scene, then, which is what I do to kind of look around, then this still just moves everything. Can I put a key interaction with this as well? Let's go to the script for it. So what do we have? Traffic system. And where do we determine? We got the draw update. This is align normal. What calls the align normal? Align normal, and we are in move mode. So we've determined that we are in move mode. That needs to get triggered and determined. That's a Boolean. What is actually setting that to F12? And over here, hit normal. There. So the designer, we're setting it in move mode if each of these settings was true. The objective I want to do is if we also have the shift key. I do not know a good way to do this. Let's go with on scene GUI. Oh, I could put a keyboard input over here into the update to store the field of what key we're holding, if we're holding the shift key, and have that as one of the variables here. But I feel like there's probably a way to do it in the editor on scene GUI. So let's go check that one out. I'm going to get this one, move it over here, and Unity C# on scene GUI is shift key held down. But I want to know if I can do that inside of there. Sometimes I wonder a little bit if search engines are trying to make their search results potentially a little bit dumber. Like they get things that are close but not quite right, so that you feel more of an urge to take a look at the AI example they have come up here, which in this case, it's got editor and on scene GUI, we get the event current and if it's got shift. That's exactly what I was looking for. All right. So that is, I'm already using the event. So let's grab one more thing. And, you know what? Let's go back to the code to the UI for a second. And so in here, I shift and do this. Holding shift doesn't make it change. Oh, it changes something about the object's selector. Does control? Well, this is something different. I did not know Unity did this. I'm holding control and right clicking on objects. And then what's happening is I'm getting a raycast layer. It's doing a raycast pass through and tells me the objects. And then I can go select it and it highlights and selects that building. I didn't know Unity could do that. Okay. Now, where is my cube? I wonder if it also tells me parental objects or, because see, I selected the cube. It didn't get the traffic item, which is what I actually wanted. All right. So I can't use control shift. How about alt? That zooms in and out. How about alt control? No. How about control shift? No. How about shift? I'm going to stick this one with shift for the time being. So, and event dot, oh, what was the code for it? Let's see if it works, because who knows, this one probably doesn't work. Event dot current. Event dot current dot shift. Okay, so theoretically, this one now requires the shift key to also be being pressed, which means that I can now move my cursor around and do other stuff. So if I right click and select, nothing's happening. I can move, but then if I hold shift down, all of a sudden I'm moving this with it. But now if I just hold shift down, what if I just made this when I'm holding shift? I don't mind that it has the rotation in there when I'm doing that, because it's also just, I just wanted to move into the spot. Okay, let's change that. What if I got rid of the rest? So if the current event is mouse drag, I don't need it to be a mouse drag. Let's go to here and comment out the rest. Control KC, save it and return to Unity. And all I'm looking for is the fact that I have this object selected and I'm going to press shift, which could interfere with other things. Okay, I like this one. I'm going to go with this for my design tool. That makes it simpler and it responds to when I want, which means that I now need something in here to explain that rule, because I'm going to forget that. If I haven't used this in a little while, I'm going to forget that. So I now need, this is on scene GUI. I want to say GUI dot label, and let's just call this one, just pass in some string rect position. Now, GUI dot info editor GUI layout dot text info. All right, I want to just draw info to this. So Unity, C sharp, custom inspector, draw text area. Create a custom inspector. No, it's not a custom inspector just by itself. I want the text in there. Drawing a struct in the inspector. No. Having text or notes in the inspector. Yes. That one seems to match what I'm looking for. All right, on here, tooltip attribute. Not quite what I'm looking for. Text area, also not quite. I mean, it could be, but oh, here we go. What is this one? Text info. Allowed to move in place, inspector in the same simple way. Here's a GitHub link. Oh, this is a tool that adds this script in there. Int field, whatever. Yeah, but I don't want an int field. It doesn't need the int field. Okay, notes, read-only attributes. Okay. Let's try that out. That happened up in the parent item. So we're going to add a couple fields here. Public, what was that? Read only. Read only attribute. Wait, is attribute needed? No, it's just read only. All right. Isn't it? Is read only. Why would we need to set is read only on a read only attribute? True. It wouldn't be implied that if we didn't have this attribute on there, it would be set. Unless you have a define, an if def. Okay. So you could define a statement that and put a compiler condition in here. All right. Now the other one was serialized, right? A serialized field, yeah. Now what? Why is it? Oh, because there's no field. Public string, and in this case, it's just the notes. Private string instructions equals. Oh, let's see. What's the first line that I want on this one? Hold, press shift to move object pointer. Press shift to move object pointer. One period, press shift to hold object pointer. Two, I'll leave it at that for now. Let's see if this, how this one looks. It doesn't need to be pretty. I just need to be able to see it. Okay, it didn't like something. Oh, right there. Okay, yeah, get rid of that. All right, time check, 11 views. No. Do I get text? It shows up inside of this, so I need a text area. So let's put that text area attribute onto there. Text area, where are you? Blah, blah, blah. There. All right. Min lines, and we're going to say 3. Yeah, I'll just set the value. So in this case, we're going to say 5. And I can modify that later. Comma. And what else does it want? Max lines. 5. Sure. Now that text area should show up a little bit wider. It does have the extra line at the beginning, but that's fine. Cool. So now inside of here, shift, but if I, what? It's reacting to the 3D environment when my mouse is over the 2D environment. All right, so I at least want it to be over this window. Where's the rest of my selectors on it? If I scroll down, selection active over the Windows scene view, I want that piece of information in it. So here, I'll just hit enter, backspace that one out, and keep this one in. There, now it'll only operate when it's over the scene window, and I hit shift. Now if I'm over this, and I don't know, doing something over here, shift. Shift is still interacting on that point right there. So when I press shift, it does whatever that thing is doing. Cool. All right. All right, so by pointing to the spot that I wanted to go, I would press the shift that adds it. Wait a minute. Shift A. What about a small collection of hotkeys? So I've got current shift. What if I were to also say, and event dot current dot key, is this a function? No. I want to find out if a current key has been pressed. Character typed. Okay. Character equals. Is this actually a character? Is this a special function? Is this a type? What are you? Character is literally a character. So that one will say A for add. Equals equals. Got it. So now by pressing Shift A, I should be able to add it, and then maybe Shift S will link it. Shift X can delete. No, Shift X is cut. Shift D will delete. Okay. So now let's go A. That didn't capture anything. Oh, wait a second. I'm holding Shift down. So maybe that's supposed to be a capital A. That would make sense. Not quite. Current character dot keycode equals keycode dot A. Maybe that will work. I wonder why the extra character one was there, if it wasn't actually capturing the character that was being pressed at the time. All right. Okay. So Control A actually does a select all. So that's a bad. Shift A. That's what I want. All right. So where is the cube? I want traffic selected. Shift A. If I get rid of this, Control KC. We're over that and the current key code. So right now, the current key code doesn't appear to have been set at all. So let's go back over to this code and we're going to say Unity on, get rid of caps lock. And now I need the event. But that's not the right thing. That's just the keyword this is using at the moment. That is it. Unity engine.event. That feels so weird because it's using the event name. That event holds a specific meaning, but this is a standardized singleton meaning implication here. But yeah, that's where it sits under Unity Engine. All right. Unity Engine dot event. What key was pressed? What letter key was pressed? That's input.key down. That's not what I'm looking for. I mean, I suppose I could actually just use that one and turn it on. Which keyboard key was pressed? This one in all keys, but where are you getting that from? Who knows? Okay, fine. What do you have to say, AI? Current character is letter E dot character. Can I debug log what's actually being printed? Oh, I could also say whatever the last one was. But every time I move my mouse, that's going to re-trigger the draw or the update. So instead of this one, we're going to go to traffic system. And what have we got over here? Debug log, key code 8. We take the event, we take the current event. We can find out if the shift key was pressed, but trying to find out if the letter A was pressed, that's not working. All right. Unity C#, this one does not work with an on-scene GUI. Not detecting keys. No, over and over. Okay. Really interesting. Go ahead and run for the key code. So if I do not have anything active in the hierarchy, it works. GUI, that means intermedia will fire twice per event, one layout and one for the actual event, which can end up being more times per key press if a repaint is involved. The point of event.current is to figure out which call you are in. Otherwise, any code you execute will happen multiple times, which you normally don't want. Okay, and so that event that's going on in here, when the constructor happens, we assign an additional call to this. Okay, fine. Let's add that and try it out. That needs to match the name here, right? Okay, that calls that one with the scene view. So if I take that information, do we have scene view that I'm using? Yes, it gets passed in. So now on this one, if I combine these two, which I should be able to do, Control K C, we've got the target. We're grabbing the target traffic system, but this is no longer accessible because we are in the static state. Which is not what I want. In this case, I do need to know the target information, the object that we're actually interacting with, not just the keys. I suppose I could store the static key presses here. So let's do that. Let's go with static key key code equals static key code key in use equals key code A, sure. And then private static bool key in use, key is used equals false. All right, so then the new one that's going on inside of here, I'm going to have it detect what key system it's in. So I'm going to say if event dot current dot which one is this key code dot current dot, and then it was just character, right? Character, and inside of there I want to find out if something was pressed. Is key, event current dot is key. Then we're going to say key in use, no, key is used equals true. Eh, whatever, we're just going to say this, Control X and pass those here. Next, and then delete, we're going to, and then key in use equals event dot current key code. Okay, so now we're going to say if event dot current key code and the static values are key in use and is used equals keycode.a, Yeah, I know the orders are messed up here, but whatever. That's not really important at the moment. Just testing the functionality, seeing if I can actually detect an A key from in here. Ah, I'm going to call it a night in just a minute, whatever the case is, and then try it again tomorrow morning. All right. So, A, am I doing anything with shift or anything? No. It just has to be over this window. So if I select that object, traffic, and then A, nothing. Not what I was expecting, or not what I was hoping for. So I still got nothing from this. We're going to get rid of these. You know what? Let's try reporting these. Um, we're using those ones. We're going to get rid of those variables since they're gone now. And we're just going to say debug.log uh, event.current.keycode. Every time I move a pixel, it's going to draw another or write another debug log. Let's just see if we get any value in this at all. Okay, mouse. Now, A comes back as none. A lot of nuns. Each time I press it, it's about 8 times that triggers inside of here. So none shows up in this. Can I store the whole key value, the whole current? This is probably just going to come back with a name, not with a specific value in here, or not with a breakdown of the entire object structure. The name of the type, most likely. Repaint. So mouse move is coming in there. Mouse down. So it got mouse down. I'll go back to that one. Traffic. Space, control, shift. Mouse moves happen, but the event current does not. Okay, fine. Yeah, I'm going to call it a night. All right, good night.